Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with J. Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Well, friends, as always, thanks for tuning in, especially last week's episode with my friend Ron Keel coming on for an interview. I really appreciate you getting behind him. But here we are 2 weeks in a row, and I have another guest, and I'm so excited. It's a good friend of mine. We have United States of America, Mrs. Southeast Julia Melton. My friend Julia, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me on today. I'm doing well.
Good. I'm so excited to have you here. You and I have had so many wonderful conversations. We've had conversations just personally about business, about the work you're doing. But what I wanted to do is grab a chance to bring you on here so that maybe you and I could talk more specifically about what you want to accomplish, your platform, but really to let more people know who you are and what you do. So if you wouldn't mind, Julia, would you give us just a little intro, tell everyone about yourself?
Sure. I am first and foremost a wife and a mother. I have a son with special needs, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for the last 5 years. This year, I competed at the National United States of America Mrs. pageant at Nationals down in San Antonio, Texas. I was crowned Mrs. Southeast in late April, early May. I partnered with Mental Health America Fredericksburg region for my platform. You are not your diagnosis. Let's end the stigma that surrounds mental illness.
Well, amazing. Julia, you and I were Facebook friends, I think. And then we bumped into each other at a networking event, and we were sort of like pointing at each other like we thought we knew each other. And then we sat down and we immediately just had a wonderful conversation. The next thing you know, we're having coffee. And we found that we had some passions that we both shared. And immediately, I mean, of course, we're talking about our families and our children and our partners and how much we love them. But then we got a chance to talk about just mental health, brain health, mental health awareness. Folks on the show, I've shared my epilepsy story many times. But what I'd love for you, we want to talk about those platforms. But would you share a little bit of the genesis of your story about how that platform and those issues became something you were passionate about? Would you share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. So mental health became a passion of mine through my own trials and tribulations with my own diagnosis and journey. In 2005, I was diagnosed bipolar. I had spent my adolescence probably what they would call a functioning manic, someone who had a lot of energy, little need for sleep, very competitive, just that those thoughts of grandeur, all those things that kind of like lay the groundwork. And then I experienced some trauma, some medical issues, and just really had a lot of things going on at that time that became the perfect breeding ground for my own mental illness. And then I spent my 20s really just not med compliant, not accepting my diagnosis, rapid cycling, making excuses of why I would be labeled such a thing, and fighting the stigma that is mental health. And then early 30s, I really just decided I didn't want to live like that and started looking for ways to find healing and hope. And now that I'm 40, just really wanting to give back to that community and share that hope that I have found.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, but you mentioned a phrase there I think is really important. What do you think it means for someone to accept their diagnosis? I imagine it might be a little bit different for everybody.
Right.
But what do you think accepting your diagnosis in a healthy way looks like?
That's a great question. I think for me, I had gotten to a breaking point. I had hit lows so many times, and really just didn't want to live a life that revolved around the diagnosis. But once I accepted it, which means once I started working with it, and it'd be like somebody who's diabetic, not accepting that they were diabetic and continuing to eat a certain way that fueled the illness. Or if you were told you had heart disease and not taking your medication and continuing down the path that was causing more problems. Accepting it for me became working with it, being med compliant, and taking steps to not let it rule my life.
Mm. And you've been passionate, Julia, about pursuing. Of course, you've been wise and you've pursued areas in which the doctors have prescribed, or areas where they've asked you to give that approach a healthy balance in your life. But you've also been really passionate about pursuing alternative and natural approaches that help with mental stability or mental health. Could you share a little bit about what that's looked like for you?
Sure. So for me, it was not just med compliance. If it was as easy as popping a pill, I think we'd all be okay. A lot of the med compliance came along with side effects, which is why I probably wasn't med compliant for so many years. Started searching for root causes and root issues that could be responsible for the diagnosis. I was no longer in denial that I was struggling with this thing called mental illness, but I wasn't just accepting that it was something I was going to live with forever and be on this pill forever. And while that may be true, this is something I may have a lifelong struggle with and may need medication forever. I wasn't satisfied with just always treating the symptoms of my illness. I really wanted to find ways to prevent and maintain homeostasis and stability. Through that journey, I learned a lot about how our diet affects our mental health, our stomach being our first brain, well, they say that all the chemicals in our brain are starting in our stomach. So I really just started taking different approach to diet and lifestyle. Also making sleep a priority and a non-negotiable, because for me, a warning sign could be I'm not sleeping for more than 5 days, and that would just set the groundwork for furthering along the illness train.
Mhm.
And then other things like breathing techniques and grounding, which we can go into, and just those kind of things that can really, like exercise and movement, that can really
Mhm.
aid in your mental well-being. And then a big thing for me was boundaries.
Mhm.
Boundaries with relationships, boundaries with social media, just knowing what those looked like for me, and not allowing others or myself to start letting those walls get flexible on those boundaries.
Yeah, I remember when my neurologist shared with me that I'd be on an epilepsy med for the rest of my life. Like they would never recommend that I go off of it. And I remember feeling angry and I don't want to be on a med for the rest of my life. I want to, and you mentioned that, accepting your diagnosis is that might be the case for you, or might be the case for someone else who is wrestling with an issue of mental health. How did you go from a point where you weren't med compliant to the point where you're like, you know what, right now I'm going to be med compliant, even if it means I'm going to be on it in the long term? Like, how did you get to that point where you were able to do that?
Sure. So in 2012, I had probably my worst to date episode since the beginning. I had, leading up to that, I had finally found a medication combination that was working. I was doing well. I was working. I had a good friend group, but I was in my late 20s, still enjoying life, not really sleeping very well, not implementing a lot of boundaries and those life lessons I needed. I started feeling really good and I came off the medication. That's something
Mhm.
that happens. You feel good and you think, I don't need this anymore. So went
Mhm.
off. And it spiraled, slowly started climbing. And then as I'm feeding the mania, the illness is getting worse to the point where I end up hospitalized for 4 months from
Mm. Mm.
October until February. When
Mm.
I come back, I have lost friend groups, I've lost job opportunities, and I really feel like I'm at ground zero and having to start my life over. Couple that with the side effects of the medication, where I fall into a deep depression. It's the birthday of my 29th year. I'm in a deep depression. I'm gaining weight from medications. And I'm just like, I cannot live my life like this anymore. I don't want to go into my 30s with with instability. And I just said, okay, I hate these medications. I hate what they're doing side effect wise. Let me see how I can work with them and work with the doctor so that I don't have, this doesn't have to be my life. No one wants to spend their life institutionalized, whether
Right.
it's a hospital or some kind of medication house. No one wants that. I don't think people do, at least. And I really just didn't, I wanted what any other 29-year-old girl wanted. I wanted marriage. I wanted kids. I wanted my own home. I wanted something that was mine. And I felt like that wasn't a reality for me unless I got control of my mental health. And I
Mm.
breaking.
Well, again, I appreciate that you continue to share things that are vulnerable and intimate. So I appreciate that. And I'm proud of you for using that as your platform. So being United States of America, Miss Southeast, how have you been able to, and how do you want to continue using, the title as a platform for this? How do the two work together?
Sure. So the United States of America pageant systems is really big on empowering women, inspiring others, and uplifting the individual, whether that's through community service, whether it's through having these hard conversations. It has given me a platform to utilize to draw awareness to and bring just conversations about. So
Mhm.
this was my first time in a pageant system, not knowing really how to work it or utilize that and do the volunteer work. I hope to continue this reign until December 31st, just drawing more awareness to and for mental health issues. And as I continue my journey within the pageant system, just really partnering with other organizations like Mental Health America of Fredericksburg, whether that's the local office or Mental Health America, the national office. Also, bringing awareness through the activities that I choose to do. So the volunteer experiences I get to participate in and the appearances I get to make. And then just having these really tough conversations with other individuals who can utilize their platforms together to be, I guess, a force multiplier in that.
Well, wonderful. I think it's one of the aspects of the pageantry system that people are not aware of, that the a massive amount of good that's being done. So you went to Texas for the pageant itself, and you bumped into everyone else who else has the platform as well. So tell us about the fun. Tell me about the experience, and then tell me maybe a little bit about some of the people you met and the good they're doing. What was that experience like?
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to describe that experience. I think as someone who was in it for the first time, it reminded me of freshman year of college, wanting, like, seeing all the possibilities of friend groups, seeing all
Hmm.
the different
Hmm.
people and just wanting to really click and resonate with them. It was oh God, it was inspirational. These women put themselves on a stage and say, "Judge me."
Hmm.
And they all have resumes a mile long where they're volunteering and having their platforms. For example, one girl's platform is suicide prevention and mental health awareness with soldiers, with those in
Okay.
the armed forces.
Hmm.
Another girl, she was raising funds to provide personal gowns for kids with cancer. There was
Mm.
another girl who, oh my God, I just can't even, like, one of the contestants who won is blind, legally blind herself, and
Mm.
was very passionate about supporting the blind community and helping bring awareness to that. So that experience alone was just inspiring. And then it was fun. We were in San Antonio, Texas on the Riverwalk, which, if you've never been, is an incredible
Wonderful.
place in and of
Yes.
itself. Probably had the best food while I was there, the best Mexican food at least.
Mhm.
And just getting to really be in an environment where everyone was reaching for that next level and wanting to not only better themselves, but better their communities and really empower one another. So
Mm.
it just
Wonderful.
was a whirlwind.
That's wonderful. It was fun, absolutely fun watching. I don't know how you found time for it, but in the midst of all that, your Instagram stories were just full, and it looked like the most amazing time. Knowing you, I could tell it was genuine, but it looked like it was amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you got that. Can't wait to hear about perhaps what would happen next. But back to your platform for a minute. Now, if I'm not mistaken, September is Suicide Awareness Month or Suicide Prevention Month? What's the title? Forgive me for not knowing.
So I think it's awareness and prevention.
Okay.
The
Okay.
we are in Suicide Prevention Week. I think today, September, well, I don't know when this is going to air, but September 10th is Suicide Prevention Day. And also this is where 988 is getting more vocalized and bringing more awareness to that, which is the mental health crisis and stability line. It used to be known as the suicide
Mm-hmm.
line, but now it's for mental health crises across the nation.
So, with it being Suicide Awareness Month or even Prevention Month, how can a month like that and efforts like that of yours practically, how can that actually help someone? Let's say there's someone who's really struggling in the throes of it, but how does awareness like that or the work you're doing, how can it practically help people? Because that's what we really want to get down to, the practical level. How can that be done?
So one way is to raise funds for 988 and local mental health efforts. There's just not enough funding. So if we
Okay.
can get more money driven into these programs, then we can have resources for
Yep.
individuals. And there are great resources just here in the Fredericksburg region. I know Mental Health America Fredericksburg, they have a warm line, which is that
Mhm.
line you can call in, you can find counselors, you can find resources in the area. There's also the Rappahannock Community Service Board, which is a wonderful resource for individuals. So by using and utilizing a week or a month to draw attention and awareness, you're showing people there are resources available, you're helping to raise funds, but also I think you're creating an environment of awareness where people are asking those questions, not just asking how can I can help, but how can I help someone else?
Mhm.
So, through different trainings that are available, others can learn one thing I learned is you're not going to cause suicide by asking someone if they're suicidal. In fact,
Mm.
you're more likely to prevent them from committing suicide. So, just asking them and learning to ask others about their mental health, and then just showing them that they're not alone and
Mm.
that there are resources available and people who care and want to help.
Well, I think what you said there, for me, is a strong takeaway. You're not going to cause a suicide by asking someone if they're thinking about suicide, and enabling people to be bold enough to ask the question, to be caring and loving enough, and because quite often those struggles are going unseen.
Right.
When I was first a school teacher, we had this young kid, 14 years old, who was very quiet and very morose, if you will. And then one day he was completely out of his shell, like completely involved and excited. And then that night, sadly, he took his life. And as a young teacher, I was probably 24 at the time. I was like, oh, it's, what a great day. Good to see you like this. What I was unaware of was such a pattern disruption that it should have been a concern for us or for the counselor. And I don't blame anyone in that situation, but just such a stark change in personality that at least we should have been aware of something. And I remember just incredible sadness of that and how it affected the school and the people who loved him. But learning when you see disruptive patterns in people, that can either be a disruptive pattern high or it can be a disruptive pattern low, taught me a lot in that situation. And I'm hoping those are some of the practical things that Suicide Awareness Month can do. And I was unaware that 988 is underfunded. So yeah, incredibly. So, well, Julia, uh, you tell me about your family. You love your family. Let's talk about your family for a minute.
I adore my family. You can see my husband on the wall. I met my husband later in life. I was 32 when we met. He was very shy, very pensive, very kind. We got married we got engaged within knowing each other for 6 months. Very quickly jumped into marriage and children. Early in our marriage, we lost a pregnancy. And we
Sorry.
went through some hard times. My son, he was born at 28 weeks. He spent 7 weeks in the NICU. So I think it's like a couple that really solidified our marriage and gave us the choice to choose, okay, are we going to work through these things? Are we going to heal together? Or could it have driven a wedge between us? But in the
Mhm.
end, we let it strengthen us and our faith. And then my son, he is just my joy. He's incredible. He's 5 years old. He started kindergarten. In spite of his hard, rocky start, you would have no idea he sustained a brain injury. You'd have no idea he has his own struggles, but he's doing so good in school, and it's a joy being a mom. I think that's my favorite thing that I get to do. So
Well, I love that. I mean, just first and foremost, ever since I've known you, just your family has been just up front, and your son's incredibly sweet. So I'm glad kindergarten is going well for him. I know that you were waiting to see how that went. So wonderful. Well, so Julia, we've got here to the end of the year with you being Miss Southeast. Um, Practically, what do you feel like? And this is kind of a bold question, but like, what do you feel like you can accomplish in the next 4 months? We've only got a few months here. Like, what is it you can accomplish with your title and your platform and just you?
So I have been working on a book since last November. I am really hoping that I'm rounding the end of it. I want to publish that before the end of the year. That's a lofty goal, and now I've put it out loud for everyone to hear.
There we go. Okay.
So my hope is to publish my book. I had created a blog in April, and I utilized that through the summer. I've kind of taken a hiatus as I'm writing the last chapters of the book, but getting back into the blog. And then I am just going to put this out here. I have been researching and learning about podcasting. This is my fourth
Mhm.
podcast interview this year. So
All right.
really having the opportunity to create some content for you guys and hopefully get that out before the end of the year. And then with the platform, especially around the holidays, just make as many appearances and take as many chances to speak publicly on that platform about mental health awareness and prevention for suicide. And also just to keep destigmatizing the label. If I, someone who struggles with bipolar illness, can accomplish these things and continue
Mhm,
to live
mhm.
in balance and walk in my truth, then others can too. So hopefully just inspire those around me.
Well, I'm incredibly excited about your book. I felt like I've been an ear in the background as you've walked through it. You've made incredible progress in a short amount of time. I know that you probably wish it was quicker, but I am looking forward to that coming out. And the genesis of that a lot was that you tell in video blogs
Yeah.
on your website. So what's your website, Julia? Can you share that?
Sure. It is thejeweloftheberg.com, and Jewel is spelled Jewl. So it's
Mhm.
thejeweloftheberg.com. And yeah, it's the Eagles View blog.
Well, I definitely want to share. I'll share that link as well as your platform link in the show notes. But I've got to encourage everyone, go back and watch some of the videos that Julia's done. They're very honest. You don't seem to be holding anything back. You're being as transparent as possible to reach folks. And these days, it's really hard to get anybody to find anything on the internet. I mean, there's so much content out there. So I really want to commend all of you. When you get done with this, click on the link in the show notes and go watch some of those and take them in as you can. We do need to give a warning, especially for everybody. There are some heavy topics in there, and there might be times where you might need to give a pause. And so, but Julie, I hope it's okay for me to say that. But you say it in a way that's loving and honest, and it's not exploitative. You're just trying your best to care for people. I enjoy them, so I'm always excited when I see them up. So, how close are you to being done with the book?
Okay, so when I first started having the book idea and plotting it out, I had 9 chapters. I have had the guts of all 9 chapters, and I've tweaked about 6 or 7 of them. So I have maybe one full chapter to write, to tidy up, and then I have planned chapter 10. So
Awesome,
chapter
wonderful,
10, rounding
wonderful.
it out, and then that's it.
Yeah, then there's the hard work of editing and cover design and all that good
I'm
stuff. So.
hoping the publisher will do that part. I have the cover design here, so I'm ready for that. But yeah, I'm very excited.
Good, good. Well, Julia, as we start to land the plane here, what are maybe some of the things surrounding your platform, you personally, or the way you want to impact that you might want to share that I haven't had a chance to touch on yet?
I think just reminding people they're not alone if they
Mhm.
are struggling with mental health issues, if they have a diagnosis, irregardless if it's a mental health issue, that it doesn't define who you are or what you're capable of. And I think you've been a great example of that. Other people in the community are great examples of that, that you're only limiting yourself through your own beliefs. And if you believe in yourself, then others will start to believe in you too. So,
I appreciate that. Both what you said about me, but just also in casting that vision. Everybody's journey is completely their own. We definitely harm ourselves if we're trying to compare ourselves, to someone else. But there's a lot of inspiration to be found as well, though. There's a lot of inspiration when we hear stories like your own or others who come from a difficult circumstance or even a dark place at time. And so the best thing we can do is, like I said, don't compare ourselves. Like, what can I learn from that? How can I be encouraged by it? And then the boldness to take change, every single day and just wake up and take today as it goes.
absolutely.
Well, Julia, I'm so glad you were here. I'm going to put all of the show notes. They're going to have a bunch of links. We're going to have to your regular website. I believe you have a helpline that I want to include in there as well, and then your platform link as well. So, friends, everybody, reach out to Julia. Also, if you would like for her, and you're in the local Virginia area, if you'd like for her to appear, she would love to make an appearance at your event, your show, school visits, whatever the case. Making appearances to advocate for mental health is something she loves doing, and she's good at it. So everybody, you can. And again, Julia, if they want to talk to you about an appearance, what's the best way to contact you for that?
So they can contact me through my website or you can reach out to me on social media.
Okay, well, perfect. What's your best social media for everyone? Where do you want people to find you?
Whichever one you use. So either
you
Instagram or Facebook. If you're a
you'll
Facebook
find her.
person, find me on Facebook.
Yeah,
My website does have a contact info page on it though.
awesome. Well, Julia, thanks so much for taking the time. Everyone, I appreciate you listening in on this. This episode's a little bit different, but mental health, brain health, those things are passions of mine. It's one of the reasons that Julia and I have become good friends. And guys, follow up with me if you have any questions. And of course, I will see you again next week. Thanks so much, friends. Bye bye.